Market to Market is everywhere you are. Subscribe to Market on YouTube, find us on the PBS video app to stream on demand, and add our 3 podcasts on your favorite podcasting app. The 1980s farm crisis hit southeastern South Dakota just like it did the rest of the country, bringing a severe economic downturn that affected many farmers and their communities. The Ettinger family of White Lake survived the crisis by relying on their father Wayne's second income as a teacher, but they received additional help when the elder Ettinger planted a field of sunflowers.
It was tough times in the 80s. Dad was, luckily for us, did a good job of forward thinking.
40 years later, his sons, Charlie and Chet, still raise sunflowers, dedicating about 15% of their row crop acres to the edible seeds.
I would say year in, year out, they're one of our best money-making crops. I mean, it is definitely challenging. I think we live in a good area with our amount of rainfall, or our climates and soils that, we're in that 20 to 24 inches of rainfall every year, so they're a good dry weather hedge.
The 2021 growing season offered a challenging dry weather test for many sunflower growing regions, and some may struggle this year as well.
Weather has really just taken a dramatic turnaround here in the Dakotas and Minnesota. We went from extreme drought conditions to now where we're out of the drought. The High Plains states, Kansas, Colorado, Texas, obviously that's a different story. They're in a very dry situation. But a lot of the sunflower that's produced in those states is under irrigation. And so it's something that's not going to affect our yields as much.
USDA estimated yields were down about 15% last year, but some industry leaders were happy it wasn't worse.
We did drop about 300 pounds an acre overall. But, given the drought conditions that we faced, many areas only had about 6 inches of rainfall last year. So that still turned out pretty well.
With that loss in production and the Russian-Ukrainian war affecting that sunflower-producing region, prices climbed in the spring and farmers responded by adding more acres.
We're seeing a lot more sunflower acres this year. Overall, we're up 29%. The biggest reason for that is obviously the situation in Ukraine. That's really created a lot more demand for sunflower products from the U.S., whether that be in domestic use or in the export market. Ukraine and Russia combined, they're about 60% of all the sunflower oil production in the world and 75% of all the exportable sunflower oils. So, when you take that oil off the market, that just creates just a huge vacuum.
During the COVID pandemic, sales for sunflowers used as bird feed surged as more people were home and looking for entertainment. Sandbakken suspects a fall report will show a slight reversal for bird feed types of seed.
I think overall demand slipped a little bit because I think people got out a little bit more. The winter wasn't quite as harsh in a lot of our key markets, but I think people are still feeding birds and probably, to a great extent than they had the last few years.
Sandbakken believes the U.S. sunflower industry could easily support another 500,000 acres of production on top of the estimated 1.7 million acres being grown this year. The Ettinger brothers, who now raise confection sunflowers for human consumption, are based in southeast South Dakota, which, as of October 2021, had received less than 14 inches of precipitation, 7 inches shy of normal. Even with the reduced moisture, their sunflower crop still did well, beating their 5-year average yield by 22%. Charlie says that anyone considering getting into sunflower production, however, needs to be ready to work.
Insects can be a challenge. Seed weevils, sunflower moths, diseases can be a challenge if you're in a wetter climate. They may not be a good fit for you. Blackbirds are one of our biggest challenges here. If you're to start raising sunflowers, I would probably start with the black oil variety. That way you can kind of get a feel on how to raise them, any other production issues you might have with them before trying to go towards a more specialty option.
Once their sunflowers are harvested, the Ettinger's edible seeds are delivered to Advanced Sunflower in Huron, South Dakota, an hour's drive to the north. Advanced Sunflower handles about 120 million pounds of sunflower seeds annually. The seeds are cleaned, sorted by size, roasted, salted or flavored, and sometimes dehulled. Nationally, about 20% of oil variety sunflowers are exported.
The U.S. was the primary area where the selective breeding was done to move them from wild to something we could use for snacks and oil and that. But now some other countries have gotten into producing sunflower seeds, so there's been a shift in the last 15 years.
Sunflowers are typically contracted ahead of time by companies like Advanced. And this year, many are offering prices much earlier.
Sunflower is not a price leader, it's a follower. So if corn and beans go down, sunflowers go down. And if they go up, sunflowers go up. We have to pay a competitive price to get to buy the acres. Some years it's a struggle and some years it's pretty easy.
There was just a mad frenzy that the first 2 months during the war, a lot of people were trying to, buy up as much as they could, and they, getting as much oil on the books as possible for delivery. Then we sort of went into a transition period where, for those who could not buy sunflower oil, they probably switched to another oil. I think there's going to be a big resurgence in demand for oil because a lot of buyers are on the sidelines right now, waiting for them, to see what kind of a crop we're going to have this year.
For Market to Market, I'm Colleen Bradford Krantz.